Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of a drama from Argentina, Spanish language English subs, released in the year 2014, directed by Gato Negro, and this film is called Gato Negro. So the English title is Black Cat. So the story of Black Cat is set in 1950s Tucuman, Argentina. Tito Pereyra is the main character. He is a young child. He's born in a very poor community. He's a very rebellious child. He has dreams of being rich, and he wants to leave his family behind, and he's always dreaming about going to Buenos Aires. So he's sent to an orphanage where he is beaten. So him and his friend escape the orphanage and they follow their dream in Buenos Aires and they go there. So the movie follows 4 decades of Tito's life as he makes his way from rags to riches, but along the way he has to step on a few people's toes that make a lot of people angry. So when he's finally hit big time, the past is coming back to haunt him. So what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Gato Negro, aka Black Cat. This is definitely a mixed bag. I thought there was a lot of good things about the film, but unfortunately it was outweighed by the negatives. Now this is a movie about following your dreams, having absolutely nothing and making something of yourself. And it depicts life in Argentina, especially in the 1950s, and the limited opportunities that the poor community have, and how the rich look down upon the poor. So it is a movie that's supposed to be uplifting, or supposed to say, this person with strong work ethic has made a name for himself. But there are a lot of other films that depict this sort of message and premise, and unfortunately for this movie, other films do it a lot better, because the main focus of the film is a lot more relatable. And instead of being irritated by this person's success, you actually follow them and you want them to become big and better. So unfortunately in this movie, the character is always very arrogant and got no respect, and to get to where he was, he's had to bend the law a little bit. Now that is realistic. Sometimes if you want to become very famous and very rich, you do break the law a little bit. But I would have liked it a lot better if the main character had a little bit of likability about him. At the start of the movie, he was this little shit. He was just basically slandering his mother, he was being awful to his family, and he just rejected them all and went to Buenos Aires. And so, on one hand, you can respect him for having the courage to follow his dreams, but on the other hand, he's hurt a lot of people in the process. So because he's so arrogant, you don't really get a chance to connect to the guy, and you don't get to see his other side. And unfortunately for this film, you don't get to see the other side of Tito until at the very end, where he starts to regret what he's doing. And the question is imposed when that happens is he sorry for everything he's done? Does he have compassion for people all of a sudden because of the fact that he regrets his decisions, or because it's come back to haunt him? So it's the old saying of, the criminal. Are you sorry for what you've done, or are you sorry because you were caught? That same thing applies to Tito, and you're never quite sure whether or not he deeply down regrets what he's done, or he just regrets it because of the fact he's been, it's catching up with him. So at the end of it, he does get compassion. He starts to, feel depressed. He's trying to be a good father and all. So there are likability, likable values to him, but you're not quite sure why he is starting to do this. And so because you never get that real connection, instead of really, rooting for him, you're starting to get irritated. You're starting to think, there are much better people who deserve the riches than this guy. But then it does show you the courage that Tito had, and the hardships that you have in Argentina to become a rich person. And that was fascinating, and I love the way the film looked, and it captured Argentina very well. It's a very beautiful place, but it can be a very harsh place too. So the acting was good. The main character who played Tito, I can't recall his name, Argentinian actor, he portrayed him in a very good way. There were some characters that come into the film that didn't really need to be there. I thought they were a little bit of a distraction. You don't really see them again after they're being introduced. But it's basically about Tito and his climb up the social ladder. And so my problem with the climb up the social ladder is that they do cut out a lot of things. So just say, for example, it's 1950, all of a sudden it's 1960, and it kind of cuts out a few years, and you're constantly thinking what's happening between those years. And so the timeline is a little bit inconsistent, and I thought it does cut a lot of time away. Even though it goes for 2 hours, you still feel that there are sections in the film that were taken out, and it would have been a little bit better if those little areas were filled in. So at the end of the movie, it does kick in with suspense, a lot of suspense, and then there's a shocking climax that really hits Tito hard, and you think to yourself, well, that's what you deserved. Instead of feeling sorry for the guy, it's what he deserved, because as I said, you don't like him. You don't like the character he has become, and you just question the reasons why he's starting to regret what he's doing. So the soundtrack very good. Technically it's a very good film. I think there are moments with the continuity that get bogged down. It does go through a bit of a lull, but then right at the end it does kick into gear, and I thought it ended reasonably well. But unfortunately for me, just the overall sense, you're supposed to be an uplifting. It's supposed to give you. It's the hope of the poor guy, the hope of the little guy against the big guy. But unfortunately, you just don't care about the little guy, and you were hoping that that little guy was somebody else. So unfortunately for that, Tito was an interesting character. He was very ruthless in what he did, but he didn't have that likability to him for you to really invest your time in him. And as a result of that, it does become a little bit irritating, and unfortunately does become a little bit boring as well. So overall, for Gato Negro, it is a movie that not many people talk about, so for that reason I would say go out there and see it if you're a fan of dramas and you like this kind of thing. There's not a lot of action, it's very dialogue heavy, so I thought the dialogue worked well. But unfortunately, as I said, that character, he's not unravelled in time. Right at the end he's unravelled, but it just takes a long time for you to get to that point, and by the time you get to that point, it's already a bit too late because he's just done so many things that just get under your skin and really, really bug you. So overall, for Gato Negro, I'm going to give it 3 stars. Still coming recommended, but it's definitely not a perfect film. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.